The words I heard through that door turned my whole world to ice. My name is Harold, and at 67 years old, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. I was wrong, dead wrong. But let me start from the beginning, so you understand how a man who spent 40 years building bridges for a living never saw the one crumbling beneath his own feet. I retired 3 years ago from Morrison Engineering in Denver. 41 years I gave that company. Started as a junior draftsman, fresh out of Colorado State, worked my way up to senior project manager. I built bridges across rivers, highways over mountains, overpasses that thousands of people drive on every single day without ever knowing my name. And that was fine by me. I never needed recognition. I just needed to know I did good work. My wife Patricia passed away 5 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Took her in 4 months flat. One day she was complaining about back pain. The next day, we were in the oncologist's office, hearing words no husband ever wants to hear. I held her hand through every chemotherapy session, every sleepless night, every moment of fear. And when she left me, she took a piece of my soul with her. We had one daughter, Emily. She was the light of our lives. Smart as a whip, graduated top of her class from CU Boulder, married a real estate developer named Kevin. They gave us 2 beautiful grandchildren, Mason and little Sophie. For a while there, I thought I had everything a man could want. After Patricia died, Emily became extra attentive. Called me every day, came by the house twice a week, always checking in. At first, I thought it was love, pure, simple love, from a daughter who worried about her old man living alone in that big house. The house. Lord, I loved that house. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, sitting on 2 acres outside Castle Rock, with a view of the mountains that Patricia and I fell in love with 35 years ago. We raised Emily there, buried 2 dogs in the backyard, planted a garden that Patricia tended like it was her 3rd child. That house wasn't just property. It was memory. It was life. But according to my daughter, it was also a burden. It started about 8 months ago. Emily came over one Sunday with Kevin, said they wanted to talk. She had that serious look on her face, the one she used to get when she had something unpleasant to tell us as a teenager. "Dad," she said, "we're worried about you. This house is too much for one person. The maintenance, the yard work, the stairs. What if you fall? What if something happens and nobody's here?" I told her I was fine. 67 isn't 90. I still played golf twice a week, walked 3 miles every morning, did my own grocery shopping. I wasn't some feeble old man who couldn't take care of himself. But Emily was persistent. She showed me brochures for a place called Sunset Ridge Village, a premier active retirement community, she called it. Beautiful grounds, social activities, medical staff, on call 24/7. She said it would give her peace of mind knowing I was somewhere safe. Kevin chimed in too. Said the housing market was hot right now. My property could fetch close to $2 million. I could sell, move into Sunset Ridge, and have plenty of money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I didn't want to sell. I told them that. I said the house was my home, my memories, my connection to Patricia. I wasn't ready to let it go. Emily got quiet after that, but she didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, she started pointing out every little thing wrong with the house. "The roof needs work, Dad. The furnace is 20 years old. Did you see that crack in the foundation?" She'd call me after every news story about an elderly person who fell and couldn't get help. "Remember Mr. Patterson from church? He broke his hip and lay on the floor for 2 days before anyone found him." I started to wonder if maybe she was right. Maybe I was being stubborn. Maybe holding on to the past wasn't healthy. Then came the incident. I was in the garage one evening, looking for some old photo albums Patricia had stored up on the high shelf. I climbed the stepladder, reached up, and somehow lost my balance. Fell hard onto the concrete floor. Bruised my hip pretty bad. Scraped up my arm. Nothing broken, thank God. But I lay there for a few minutes, dazed and hurting. Emily showed up the next morning, unannounced. When she saw the bruises, she burst into tears. "This is exactly what I was afraid of, Dad. What if you'd hit your head? What if you'd been unconscious? You could have died out here and nobody would have known." Her words hit me hard. Maybe I was being selfish, putting my own sentimentality above my daughter's worry. Maybe it was time to accept that I wasn't as young as I used to be. 2 weeks later, I agreed to tour Sunset Ridge Village. The place looked beautiful, I'll give them that. Manicured lawns, a nice clubhouse, friendly staff. The apartment they showed me was small but clean. Emily had already worked out the financials with Kevin. They would handle the sale of the house, manage the paperwork, make sure I was settled in before closing. All I had to do was sign a few documents. I signed. I trusted my daughter. The move happened fast. Too fast, looking back. Within a month, I was out of my house of 35 years and into a one-bedroom apartment at Sunset Ridge. Emily said the house sold quickly because the market was so good. She deposited the money into a joint account she'd set up for convenience, since I wasn't very good with online banking. For the first few weeks, everything seemed fine. I met some nice people, joined a book club, started walking the grounds every morning. Emily visited once, said she was proud of me for making such a healthy decision. Then things started to change. First, it was my bank card. It got declined at the little convenience store in the village. I called the bank, and they said the account was nearly empty. Must be some mistake, I thought. I called Emily, left a message. She didn't call back for 3 days. When she finally did, she sounded annoyed. Dad, there were a lot of expenses with the move and selling the house. Closing costs, repairs they found during inspection, the deposit for Sunset Ridge. Don't worry, I'm managing everything. I asked for a statement. She said she'd send one, but never did. Then the visit stopped. Emily used to come by once a week, then it became once a month, then nothing. I tried calling, but she was always too busy. The kids have activities. Kevin's got a big project. I'll come next week, Dad, I promise. Next week never came. I started feeling more isolated. The friendly staff at Sunset Ridge became less friendly. I noticed things, small things at first. My meals arrived late or cold. Maintenance requests went ignored. When I complained, I was told I was being difficult. Then they moved me. A young administrator came to my apartment one morning and informed me that I was being transferred to the memory care unit. I asked why. She said Emily had expressed concerns about my cognitive decline. Cognitive decline? I was sharper than most people half my age. I told her there must be some mistake. She smiled that patronizing smile people give to the elderly and said my daughter knew best. The memory care unit was nothing like my apartment. It was a locked ward, fluorescent lights, linoleum floors, the smell of disinfectant and something worse underneath. The people there were genuinely ill, many of them unable to recognize their own families. And there I was, perfectly lucid, trapped among them. I demanded to call my daughter. They let me use the phone at the nurse's station. Emily answered on the 4th ring. Dad, she said, the doctors think this is best. You've been confused lately, don't you remember? You keep forgetting things. I haven't forgotten anything, I shouted. Emily, what is going on? Why am I here? Where is my money? She hung up on me. That night, I lay awake in that strange bed, listening to someone down the hall calling for their mother who'd probably been dead for 50 years, and I realized something terrible. My daughter had put me here, not to protect me, not because she was worried. She had put me here to get rid of me. The next morning, I pretended to be compliant. I took my medications, which I later learned to hide under my tongue and spit out. I smiled at the nurses. I acted like the docile old man they expected me to be. But inside, I was planning. I needed information. I needed to understand what Emily had done. And I needed to get out. There was another man on the ward who didn't belong there either. His name was Frank Delgado, 74 years old, former homicide detective from Phoenix. Sharp eyes, quiet demeanor, mind like a steel trap. He'd been put in Sunset Ridge's memory care by his stepchildren after his wife died. Same story as mine, different details. We recognized something in each other. 2 men who shouldn't have been there, surrounded by people who couldn't help us. I approached Frank one afternoon in the common room. He was doing a crossword puzzle, filling it in with a mechanical pencil he'd somehow smuggled in. You don't belong here either, I said. He looked up at me, studied my face for a long moment. Neither do you, he said. Sit down. We talked for hours that day, trading stories. Frank had figured out that his stepchildren had forged his signature on documents transferring his assets to them. His wife's life insurance, his pension, their house in Scottsdale. By the time he realized what was happening, they'd had him declared mentally incompetent. When I told him about Emily, about the house and the money, his expression turned grim. "How much was your property worth?" he asked. "Close to $2 million, I said. He nodded slowly. "And you signed documents giving your daughter control of your finances?" "I trusted her," I said. "She's my daughter." Frank didn't say anything to that. He didn't need to. The silence said everything. Over the next few weeks, Frank and I developed a system. We mapped out the facility, learned the staff schedules, identified which nurses were careless and which ones actually paid attention. Frank still had contacts from his years on the force. He managed to get a message to an old partner of his, a retired detective named Marcus, who did private investigation work. Marcus came to visit Frank, posing as a distant cousin. He smuggled in a cheap prepaid cell phone and some cash. Now we had resources. The phone changed everything. I started researching, carefully, late at night under my blanket. I found out that Kevin's real estate development company was in serious trouble. 3 failed projects, mounting debts, lawsuits from investors. They were hemorrhaging money. Then I found the life insurance policy. Emily had taken out a policy on me 6 months before she started pushing me to move. $2 million. The beneficiary was listed as the Emily Peterson Family Trust. My daughter had insured my life for the exact value of the house she'd already taken from me. I showed Frank the information on the phone. He sat back in his wheelchair, a prop he didn't actually need, and let out a long breath. "She's not just stealing from you, Harold. She's planning to kill you." The words landed like punches. But somewhere deep inside, I think I already knew. The isolation, the memory care unit, the medications they were giving me. I thought about how often I'd been dizzy lately, how my hands had started trembling, how I sometimes couldn't think straight. They were drugging me. Slowly, steadily, they were pumping me full of something that would eventually stop my heart or destroy my mind. And when I died, it would look like natural causes. Just another old man whose body gave out. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage. But Frank put his hand on my arm and said the words that probably saved my life. "Not yet. We need evidence. We need a plan, and then we make them pay." Marcus got to work on the outside. He pulled property records, bank statements, Kevin's business filings. Everything painted the same picture. Emily and Kevin were drowning in debt. Kevin's company owed over $3 million to various creditors. They were about to lose everything. My house, my money, and eventually my life were supposed to be their bailout. But Marcus found something else too. Something that made the whole thing even worse. Emily had started the process of having me declared legally incompetent. She'd filed paperwork with the court, submitted statements from doctors at Sunset Ridge who claimed I had advanced dementia. If the court approved, she would have complete legal control over everything I owned. She could make medical decisions for me. She could decide when to pull the plug. The hearing was in 3 weeks. Frank and I needed to act fast. The first step was getting off the medications. Frank showed me how to cheek the pills, how to fake swallowing, how to dispose of them later without anyone noticing. Within a week, the fog started to lift. My hands stopped trembling. My thoughts became clear again. The next step was documentation. Marcus arranged for an independent doctor to evaluate me, a neurologist from Denver General who had no connection to Sunset Ridge. The doctor came in posing as a new physician doing intake evaluations. He spent 2 hours with me, conducting cognitive tests, checking my reflexes, reviewing my medical history. His conclusion? I was completely mentally sound. No signs of dementia, no cognitive impairment beyond normal age-related changes. He noted, however, that my medical records from Sunset Ridge showed I had been prescribed a cocktail of sedatives and antipsychotics that would cause confusion and disorientation in any patient. Someone had deliberately drugged me to create symptoms they could use against me. Marcus also tracked down my bank records. The $2 million from the house sale had been deposited into the joint account Emily set up, then transferred out within days. It went into Kevin's company accounts, into their personal accounts, into payments for their mortgage and their cars and their credit card bills. They had spent almost all of it in 6 months. My entire life savings, my home, everything Patricia and I had built together, gone. Spent on my daughter's lifestyle and her husband's failing business. I felt sick when I saw those numbers. But more than that, I felt angry. A cold, clean anger that burned through the grief and the betrayal and left something hard in its place. These people had stolen from me. They had tried to destroy my mind, and they were planning to kill me for the insurance money. I was not going to let them win. Frank and I started planning our move. We couldn't just escape from Sunset Ridge. We needed to expose everything, to make sure Emily and Kevin couldn't talk their way out of it, couldn't paint me as a confused old man making wild accusations. Marcus continued gathering evidence. Bank records, medical documents, the life insurance policy, statements from staff at Sunset Ridge who were uncomfortable with how I'd been treated. One nurse, a young woman named Rosa, was willing to testify that she'd been ordered to administer medications to me that she didn't believe were medically necessary. The competency hearing was in 2 weeks. Emily would be there, Kevin would be there, the judge would be there, and so would I, with every piece of evidence we had collected. But first, I needed to confront my daughter. I arranged it through Marcus. I told Emily I wanted to see her, that I was feeling better, that I wanted to talk about making things easier for her. She agreed, probably thinking I'd finally given up. She came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in the common room when she walked in, looking polished and put together, not a hair out of place. She smiled when she saw me, that smile I used to love, the smile I'd been so proud of when she was a little girl. "Hi, Dad," she said. "You look good." I looked at her, this stranger wearing my daughter's face, and I felt something inside me turn to stone. "Sit down, Emily." She sat across from me, still smiling. "How are you feeling? The doctor said you've been more cooperative lately." "I've been thinking a lot," I said. "About the house, about the money, about why I'm really here." Her smile flickered, just for a second. "Dad, we've been over this. You need care. This is the best place for you." "The best place for me is a locked psychiatric ward where they pump me full of drugs that make me forget my own name?" She didn't answer. I leaned forward. "I know what you did, Emily. I know about the money. I know about Kevin's debts. I know about the life insurance policy." Her face went pale. I watched the color drain right out of her cheeks. "I don't know what you're talking about." $2 million, I said. "That's what you took out on me. That's what you get when I die. Which is what you're counting on, isn't it? That's why you have them giving me all those medications. That's why you're trying to have me declared incompetent. You're just waiting for my heart to give out so you can collect." "Dad, that's crazy talk. This is exactly why you need to be here. You're paranoid. You're confused." I pulled out the folder Marcus had prepared. Bank records, the insurance policy, the court filing, the independent doctor's evaluation. I spread them out on the table between us. "I'm not confused anymore, Emily. I stopped taking your drugs. I had a real doctor examine me. I have evidence of everything you've done. And in 2 weeks, when we go to that competency hearing, I'm going to show the judge all of it." She stared at the papers. I watched her expression shift, watched the mask slip. For a moment, I saw something ugly underneath, something cold and calculating. "You can't prove anything," she said. Her voice was different now, harder. "I already have." She stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over her chair. "You don't understand, Dad. Kevin's business is failing. We're going to lose everything. The house, the cars, Mason's college fund, everything. I did what I had to do." "You did what you had to do?" I repeated. "You stole from me. You're trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. You're drugging me. And don't think I don't know what the end game is, Emily. You're waiting for me to die." Her eyes met mine. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she leaned down, close to my face, and said something I will never forget as long as I live. You should have just been a good father, she whispered. You should have just helped us when we asked, but you were always so stubborn, so proud of that stupid house. This could have been easy. You could have given us the money and lived comfortably somewhere nice. But you made it hard. You made it so we had to do it this way. She straightened up, smoothed her blouse, and walked out without looking back. I sat there for a long time after she left, staring at the papers spread out in front of me. My daughter, my only child, the baby I'd held in my arms, the girl I'd walked to school, the woman I'd walked down the aisle. She had looked me in the eye and told me this was my fault, that I had brought this on myself by not giving her what she wanted. Frank found me there an hour later. He didn't ask what happened. He just sat down beside me and waited. She's not my daughter anymore, I finally said. I don't know who that woman is, but she's not the girl I raised. No, Frank agreed. She's not. But she's the woman who's going to face justice. And that's what we focus on now. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I had to stay in Sunset Ridge, had to keep pretending to be the cooperative patient, had to hide the fact that I knew everything. Emily didn't come back. I think she was planning something, trying to figure out how to stop me. But she was out of time. The competency hearing was held at the Douglas County Courthouse. Marcus arranged for my transportation. He'd also contacted an attorney, a woman named Janet Simmons, who specialized in elder abuse cases. She reviewed our evidence and agreed to represent me. When I walked into that courtroom, I saw Emily and Kevin sitting at a table with their lawyer. They both looked confident. They thought they'd won. They thought I was just a confused old man who wouldn't be able to string 2 sentences together. Emily's face when she saw me walk in, clear-eyed and steady, escorted by my own attorney with a briefcase full of evidence. I'll remember that face for the rest of my life. The hearing was supposed to be about whether I was competent to manage my own affairs. Instead, it became something else entirely. Janet presented everything. The bank records showing the systematic theft of my assets. The life insurance policy taken out without my knowledge. The medical records showing I'd been inappropriately medicated. The independent neurologist's evaluation confirming I had no cognitive impairment. Statements from Rosa and 2 other staff members at Sunset Ridge who testified to irregularities in my care. Emily's lawyer tried to object, tried to claim we were off topic, but the judge was having none of it. She looked at my daughter with barely concealed disgust. What became clear, what became undeniable, was that my daughter and her husband had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to steal my assets and eliminate me. The judge denied the competency petition. More than that, she referred the case to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Emily was arrested that afternoon. Kevin tried to run, but he didn't get far. They picked him up at the Denver airport, trying to board a flight to Mexico. The charges came fast. Elder abuse, fraud, theft, conspiracy to commit murder. The prosecution argued that the medication regime they'd arranged was intended to gradually kill me while making it look like natural decline. The life insurance policy was the smoking gun. The trial took 8 months. I testified for 3 days. I told the jury everything. I told them about Patricia, about the house, about how much I'd loved my daughter and trusted her completely. I told them about the locked ward and the drugs and the way she'd looked at me when she said this was my fault. Emily's lawyer tried to paint me as a bitter old man, exaggerating a family dispute, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury convicted them both on all counts. Emily got 18 years. Kevin got 22. I was in the courtroom when the sentence came down. My daughter looked at me, and I think she expected to see triumph in my eyes. What she saw was grief, because despite everything, despite the betrayal and the theft and the attempted murder, part of me was still mourning the daughter I'd lost, not the woman who went to prison, the little girl who used to ride on my shoulders, the teenager who asked me to help her with math homework, the young woman who cried at her wedding and told me I was the best father anyone could have. That girl died somewhere along the way. I don't know when. Maybe when Kevin's business started failing. Maybe when the debts piled up. Maybe she was never really there at all. And I just couldn't see it. I think about it sometimes. How I missed the signs. How I trusted so completely that I never questioned why my daughter was so eager to move me out of my home. How I signed those documents without reading them carefully because I believed my child would never hurt me. Frank tells me I shouldn't blame myself. He says people like Emily and Kevin are skilled manipulators. They know how to exploit love and trust. They count on it. Frank and I are still friends. Best friends, actually. After everything came out, Marcus helped him fight his own case against his stepchildren. They're facing charges now, too. There's apparently a whole network of these schemes. People deliberately targeting elderly family members for their assets. We've become advocates, Frank and I. We speak at senior centers, at community groups, at legal conferences. We warn people about the signs. We tell them to protect themselves. We tell them that loving someone doesn't mean you have to trust them blindly. I got some of my money back. Not all of it. Emily and Kevin had spent most of it. But I recovered enough to start over. I bought a small house in Arizona, near Sedona. 2 bedrooms, a nice patio, a view of the Red Rocks. Patricia would have loved it. The grandchildren, Mason and Sophie, are with Kevin's sister now. She's a good woman, nothing like her brother. She brings them to visit me sometimes. They don't really understand what happened. They just know Mommy and Daddy went away, and Grandpa lives in Arizona now. I don't know what I'll tell them when they're older. The truth, I suppose. They deserve to know the truth. Some people ask me if I regret sending my daughter to prison, if I wish I'd handled it differently, if I would have taken the money back and let her go, given the chance. The answer is no, not because I don't love her. I will always love the girl she used to be. But the woman she became was willing to kill me for money, to drug me, to lock me away, to erase my mind and wait for my body to follow. That woman needs to face consequences. Not for revenge, for justice. And for all the other elderly people out there whose children might be thinking the same thoughts. The detective who handled my case asked me something before the trial. He said, "Mr. Sullivan, you're 67 years old. You figured out what was happening, gathered evidence, built a case, and brought down 2 people who thought they'd gotten away with the perfect crime. How did you do it?" I thought about it for a moment before answering. "I spent 40 years building bridges," I told him. "I know how to look at a structure and find the weak points. I know how to reinforce what's failing and tear down what can't be saved. My daughter thought I was just a feeble old man she could push aside. She forgot who taught her to be strong." He smiled at that. "There's one more thing I should tell you, about what happened after everything was over, after the trial, after the sentencing. I went back to Castle Rock. I drove to my old house, the one Patricia and I had loved for 35 years. New people live there now, a young family with 2 kids and a dog. I could see them through the window, having dinner together, laughing. I sat in my car outside that house for a long time. I thought about all the memories inside those walls, the Christmases and the birthdays and the ordinary Tuesday evenings that somehow meant more than anything. Then I drove away. You can't hold on to the past. You can only carry it with you. And I've learned that home isn't a building. It's the people who love you for real, not for what they can take from you." Frank was waiting for me back in Arizona. He'd made dinner, chili from his mother's recipe, cornbread on the side. We ate on the patio, watching the sun set over the Red Rocks. "You okay?" he asked. I thought about it, about everything I'd lost, about everything I'd survived. "Yeah," I said, "I'm okay." And the strange thing is, I meant it. I'm 70 now. I've got good friends. I've got my health, more or less. I've got a little house with a nice view and neighbors who check on me because they're kind, not because they're waiting for me to die. I've got a life, a real one, built on truth instead of lies. And every morning when I wake up, I think about Patricia. I think about what she would have said about all of this. I think she'd be proud of me for fighting back, for not letting them win, for finding the courage to tear down the bridge I'd built with my own daughter because it had become something rotten and dangerous. That's the hardest thing about betrayal. It doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the people closest to you, the people you'd die for, the people you never believed could hurt you. My daughter tried to kill me for money. She almost succeeded, but I'm still here. And if you're listening to this and you're worried about someone in your life, if something feels wrong, If the people who say they love you are pushing you toward decisions that don't feel right, trust your instincts. Get help. Talk to someone outside the situation. Because family isn't just blood. Family is the people who would never put a price on your life. The people who stand beside you when everything falls apart. I lost my daughter. But I found my family, and in the end, that made all the difference.